All right, wonderful. Welcome everyone. I want to welcome you to our data event. So great. Yeah, this is great. Yes, we're going to welcome you to our data event, or DADA, which is Dads and Doula Awareness, which we're going to enter this awareness with a dialogue with our wonderful panelists. But also we want to just kind of ground ourselves and just talk about why we're here. We're here because our families, our communities, our future begins with birth, and it also begins with these people here. With dads and with doulas. They're usually the first people there in the celebration of life and the roles that we all play together to evoke change. So I'm just excited to have you all here. Of course, Black Maternal Health Week is this week, and we all know the numbers. We understand that the U.S. has some of the worst birth outcomes in this developed country. And so one way that we combat that is by having our partners involved, and our partners could look like dads, doulas, and others. So let's get this conversation going. We're going to start with introduction with our host, Conversations with Creecy. And here we are. Thank you.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Victoria Williams, thank you for the introduction. She did not introduce herself. So that's who that young lady is. Collaborative of Birthmark Doulas. And I am Darrell, Creecy, your host. Today we will have a conversation with Creecy about dad and doula awareness. I appreciate you all participating in this conversation today. And before we start, would you all mind just giving like a short introduction, your name, and your birthing experience that brought you to this panel today?
Hi, my name is Tasia, Stewart. I am with Birthmark Doulas. I am a doula, certified breastfeeding specialist, perinatal health advocate, and trained birth assistant. You said what experience started me within this work? As always, I'm a mother first. I have two beautiful children that I had the honor of bringing forth to this earth side. They're 13 and 20. So the experiences that I had with them within childbirth and not feeling as supported as I should have been brought me into this work.
I'm Demetrius, Grosse. I am the co-founder of Tada Baby, father first, actor and artist, and married to Ashley Nicole Grosse, who we home birthed 4 children. I had to think about how many kids we had.
He like that sometimes.
So I was introduced to this space by wanting to make the choice to have the best outcome and provide the best environment for my wife. It was a mutual decision, and we were successful. We had 4 successful natural births, and 3 were at home, and 1 was in the hospital. And one of our children were born here with a Black OBGYN. And we got introduced to Victoria, Bantu, Birthmark Doulas, and just an incredible community here that's been helping us to launch our company.
Bantu, Grosse, Fathers Matter, husband of Tyra, father of 4, and I guess for me, like coming into the maternal child health fatherhood space was just based on conversations I had with my friends. I was one of the last ones in my friend group to have kids, and so I remember hearing them tell stories about being a dad and what they were going through in their relationships. And so then once I became a dad and was in in the birthing room and just went through the whole experience with my wife, I was like, okay, this like just opened up a whole new world for me to see things were happening not the way I thought they would happen. Because on TV, you know, a woman says, huh, my water broke, and you know, they rush to the hospital to give birth to the baby, and you know, you light the cigar and all that other fun stuff. But it wasn't like that, you know. It wasn't no water broke. It was like hey, we gotta go to the doctor. And I'm like, are you sure? So we go to the doctor, go to the hospital, and you know, we leave with a baby. But all the stuff in between that we'll get into more as we carry on this conversation. But it's not what it shows on TV. So that really brings me into the work to shed light on that.
Thank you. Thank everybody for that introduction. So, as you all know, right, this is Black Maternal Health Week, and our organization, Fathers Matter NOLA, is pretty much a advocate for lifting up dad voices and experiences, right? And what other better experience for a dad is to be part of that birthing experience, right? So, what I would like for you all to kind of share is your experience and how you feel a dad, or I'm sorry, you as dads, right, had played a vital role in that childbirthing experience. So I'm gonna start with you, Tasia, because you mentioned that you did not see the support that you were actually looking for. So can you, if you don't mind, share a little bit about what that experience was and how you sought help, and if that, or what steps you took from that to become a doula?
So my experience is, my kid's father was very involved, which was awesome. Supported me physically throughout both birth processes. But what I noticed was that was kind of all he was able to do was hold space. Neither of us were very educated surrounding birth and the things that can happen, and I became very ill within both pregnancies. And we kind of just like didn't have a clue to what was going on with me or my body, and we were just kind of winging it and put all of our faith and trust into the medical system, which we all know is not always the best route to go. So when I say not supported, I mean supported within education and being able to make the best informed decisions that we needed to make for ourselves in those moments. And I think it could have kind of changed the trajectory if either one of us would have became more educated in that sense, right? So yeah, I think it's very vital to have the support of a partner and dad, right? Because within that time, you know, you're in labor and you're focusing on that, and you know, you're really worried about the well-being of your child, and your brain can be kind of fogged. And to have another support person that can think more clearly than you and can advocate for you in that space is very vital. And so I really think it's beneficial for that person to get educated also. You know, the birthing person shouldn't be the only one at the childbirth education class learning about breastfeeding or all the ins and outs of what can happen within the hospital systems. I think their partner needs to learn that also, so they can speak up and advocate in those moments.
You mind if So I just wanted to respond to that because as a man, I actually heard the term dad doula maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and I was like, oh, I think that's super cool. And I actually got the opportunity just recently to like take a certification to be a dad doula, so that way I can have that knowledge to be able to support my partner in that birthing experience and advocate, just like you mentioned. And for Mr. Grosse, you mentioned that you've had 3 home births. So can you explain to us like what was the deciding factor for you all to do that, and how did you come about that decision?
Great question. There were several factors that went into the decision-making process. You know, we're students of history, so you know, we were very skeptical originally about what the outcome would be if we went the normal Western medicine hospital route, and you know, we at the time, we were living in California. We were a part of a yoga community. And so homeopathy was really important to us at that time, like natural medicine, and alternative forms of healing, Eastern medicine, and Kemetic ways of lifestyle. And so originally the idea to have a natural birth was one that came out of us looking at the data of history, things like the Tuskegee experiment, and things like, this guy, Dr. Sims, who did all these experiments on Henrietta Lacks, and we were privileged actually because we were together. We have careers that allow us to kind of shift our schedule a little bit, more than most. But so those were some of the things. I think we wanted to make sure that we did it the right way, and so we studied. We went to a birthing center that was in Southern California. It was in maybe like Culver City, and we met a phenomenal midwife there, Kim Durden, and she introduced us to this perinatal community, and we learned that there were other ways that we could do this outside of what we were taught on television or what we learned culturally. It was important to me that we got educated on how to do this, so it didn't catch us off guard. So we took a lot of classes. Did I answer your question? Yeah, for us, it came out of just, in a nutshell, it came out of like seeing all of the morbidity rates, things that were happening in hospitals, and how Black women and Black men were getting exploited. Fortunately, we were able to find practitioners who did work in the hospital structure, who were passionate about positive outcomes, and who were passionate about being culturally sensitive, and who were focused on improving the maternal success rates. And so we were able to find that community within the hospital system. But originally, it was a movement. Me and my wife's ideology was to counter that approach.
Right.
And then by the time we got around to our fourth baby, we had found those people who were actually involved in the hospital system who still had those values. Yeah.
Nice. Can I see that? All right, thank you. I appreciate the share. And you mentioned maternal morbidity rates, and I think it's important to highlight that because the American history of healthcare towards Black folks, especially Black women, is absolutely insane. The maternal morbidity rates as of late, I was reading some statistics that said 3 out of 4 Black women have a higher risk factor of having complications, and then also having a death during pregnancy. And that statistic actually doubled for quite some time in Louisiana. From 2018 to 2020, I believe they said it was a 60% rate for Black women during that time. So, Dr. Grosse, cousin Grosse, let's, would you mind sharing, right, because you are, you involved in relationships and interactions with maternal and maternal and child healthcare organizations, right, to talk about those maternal morbidity statistics. So can you share your insight on that and how it plays a role and how you contribute to those organizations?
Cool. Appreciate it. So I think being able to enter the maternal and child health spaces as a male with a dad slant allows me into a lot of different conversations. And then also going through the birthing process with my wife allowed me to see it firsthand. So in short, when we were pregnant with our first child, went in there, I did all the classes like Tasia was talking about. You know, me and my wife, we did all the classes, but then also like Demetrius was talking about, we had a midwife, we had a doula, and we wanted to make sure we had the best of both worlds, because there was some skepticism towards the medical industry, but there also was this appreciation for the community and make sure we did it this way, because you know, we saw the ancestors did it this way, but there's also some benefits to being in the hospital. If there was an emergency, you know, she'd be rushed here, etc. And so for our birthing process for the first child, we thought it was gonna be traditional, but then at the last minute, we had to have a C-section to get the little homie out. And so, but what was so fascinating, to Tasia's point earlier, you know, while my wife is pushing the baby out, they're asking her questions. And I'm sitting right there next to the bed, it's like, hello, like you can ask me these things. And so then like once I inserted myself in there, I also had to be mindful because I'm still a tall black guy. And so that could be some intimidation for some folks. And then on top of that, I have a PhD, so I can have conversations. I can use big words too. And so it's like, I'm having to like contort myself in a way to make them feel comfortable, to make sure my wife is comfortable, so that way we all get out this room comfortable. And I think that just adds this different complex layers that you're navigating through to make sure you get your wife out, because you know the statistics. I mean, we heard the story about Serena and how she barely made it out, and she's got buku more money than my wife and us, right? But you know, she had her partner there who was able to get her out of that process to make sure she was alive. We also saw other celebrities go through it. The story of Charles Johnson with Kira, and how she died in Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles, or even Rose out there in Brooklyn, how you know she died on the birthing table, and then for the husband to be referred to as the baby daddy and not even given the proper term of being father. You know what I mean? So just the disrespect that males have felt while they were in that space, trying to make other people feel comfortable to make sure that their wives got out, that their child was brought into the world. And so when I am allowed to enter into some of the maternal and child health spaces, I always try to make sure that we talk about how we engaging dads, and not just one of those things like, oh yeah, invite the dad here, make sure we got some Sports Illustrated magazines that he can read, or maybe there's another dad he can kind of like talk sports with or something like that. But how are we engaging dads in meaningful ways? And then on top of that, how can we talk about ways that there are benefits to dads? Because typically we invite dads in and say, okay, this is how dad benefits mom. So if dad's here, breastfeeding rates go up. Mom is more likely to come out alive. But what are the benefits to dad? Like, how can he feel like, okay, this is the value I get out of this process? We know when dad is involved, some of the benefits, Demetrius could probably attest to it. I know my child made it here, you know, so I got that mental health, that clarity that my child is here. Then on top of that, my wife is here too. So I have that, and I don't have to worry about making funeral plans. So I think just that mental clarity that men are able to walk away with. I don't think we talk enough about postpartum depression in males. We talk a lot about for women, but not for males. And so I think making sure we have the full breadth of information whenever we're talking about the family unit. Even in some ways, I'm kind of on the tip of like almost dismantling the name maternal and child health, women, infant, children, like family. Make sure dad is involved, because a lot of times we're like, where's the dad? Daddy not involved. I'm not surprised, blah, 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 but it's in your name. Maternal and child health, where's the dad? And then that was an article that came out a few years ago, and a guy calls it, where's the F in MCH, you know? You know, so just making sure that we include fathers all around, and not just treat them like a kin doll, like it's nice to have.
I get some snaps to that. I would definitely agree. And I also feel like, you know, just changing the terminology of family is not enough. Like, you literally have to put father in the mix, you know what I'm saying, or paternal in the mix. Just so that way it could be like absolutely understood. Because some people may feel like, you know, the dad is not in the family, so I'm still not going to include them in my mind, right? You brought up a lot of good points that I want to touch on. First, you mentioned how Serena, you know what I'm saying, she had a lot more money. And there are statistics out there that actually say that black women with degrees and higher income have the worst outcomes out of black women when it comes to maternal morbidity. I don't know if it's true. I just read it, so I'm sharing it. But when you brought it up, like it kind of clicked in my mind. And then also, you mentioned just programming for dads and education for dads. So that kind of leads me to my second question, because Tasia, you mentioned that you and your child's father got educated to kind of like not have the same similar experience that you had previously. So can you tell us about how that education helped you all, and also specifically, I know he's not here, but could you speak to his kind of like aha moment, you know, for him to learn that education and want to contribute?
So yeah, we were very young with the first pregnancy. So like I said, we didn't get much education surrounding what it is. Second go around, like I wanted to kind of change that trajectory. So we went to classes that were given at the hospital. At that time, I still didn't know about what a doula was. So I kind of just was like winging it, finding a class here, a class there to pick up. Of course, you know, not being able to afford real expensive trainings, but whatever the hospitals offered, you know, and I made him tag along. And he was interested in tagging along. And in that way, he kind of knew, made sure he came to the visits and things like that, asked the questions. Like I would make time within my visits to say, hey, do you have some questions for her? You know, like any concerns, you know, and that was just something I learned within one of the classes, like make sure Dad is getting the concerns out. Also, because I think what we have to realize, and what a lot of folks don't realize, is they worry too, right? You just think that because the mother or the pregnant person is holding the baby, they only hold the worry. Well, the partner holds the worry too, because first of all, they want to make sure that the pregnant person is safe. I know, you know, that's their number one concern. And then also their unborn child. So we really need to make space for that. And as a doula, from my experience, I learned making space for that within my care with my clients. And I remind them, like, did you check in with Dad about that? How did Dad feel about that? You know, I try to make the care a holistic approach versus what mom got going on, what baby got going on, which I did at the doctor's today. Like, I'm checking in on everybody. If a grandmother is a part of the mix, how did grandma feel about that decision y'all made? Like, I want everybody involved because that makes a difference. And I want to know mentally where everybody is in the space. Because we all need to go in that space mentally okay, right? Because if just one person is fragile, when that birthing time comes, that can make a difference. Or one person is unsure, that can make a big difference within the outcome, right? So we all need to be on a line plane. So yeah, Dad definitely needs to stay concerned, be in a good mental space about what's happening and what's going on.
Can I answer that just briefly?
I think it's important for people who don't know to be informed that if you are having your baby in a hospital, you can create a birth plan with your OBGYN. So it's not either or. It's not like you have to go completely, indigenous and do it at home and have the birthing tub, and if that's too risky for you, or if that's too foreign in terms of ideology, you can actually have a very natural and supported birth in the hospital. In fact, my wife did that here in New Orleans at it was like Tour or something. And we were able to have a doula present. We had midwives there, and the nurses, and the OBGYN. So I wanted to add that, because as you are a doula, natural birth can happen with support even in a hospital environment if you are intentional leading the months and the trimesters leading up to the day. You can curate that plan. So I think that's something women should know, and fathers should know. Because oftentimes it's the father that all can offer the support financially, emotionally, cognitively, just intentionally to curate the plan that's the best for the birthing mom.
Yes, so, yes, I definitely agree with that because, like, to Tasia's point, she said, like, dads care too. And all of you all made some statements around how you wanted to be involved in the birthing process. And cousins of Grosse, both of you all mentioned that, you know, you all had doulas, midwives in the birthing space with you. So can you explain or share your experience around not necessarily the reason why, but like how you felt, because I'm gonna just put it like this, let me back up. So when I took the doula training, I found out some things that I did not know and some things that scared me a little bit. And also like, hey, I don't know if I'm really prepared for that mentally right now. I have to kind of work myself to it. So while you all had doulas in the space learning this information through these trimesters, how did that influence you or kind of like motivate you to want to be more involved in the birthing experience?
Before these lovely men mentioned how a doula supported them in that space, I want to just say like what a doula is, because I know a lot of people don't understand what a doula is. So a doula is a professionally trained person that helps pregnant and parenting families through birth, labor, and postpartum period through informational, educational, and physical support. We help the families through all processes throughout birth. We educate them. We give them the tools they need to make the best informed decisions in that space for them. We do not do anything clinical. So a midwife and a doula is different. Midwife is helping you with the clinical sides of things, just as if what your OB would do. But a doula is there to help you with that educational, informational, and to get you physically through childbirth with holistic pain management.
Thank you for that.
And many insurance companies are now covering doula services in the insurance plans if you ask for them. So people online watching, you should know that as well. That just happened, I think, about 6 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, remind me the question one more time? 'Cause
Sorry. But it's like how, you know, how did you learn, how did you react to or respond to you learning about the information that the doula was sharing, and how did that contribute and or motivate you to show up in the birthing process?
yeah, they got a mic right for you. So I think for me it was just making sure I was educated about it. I mean, education is just important to me in general. And so I know, like, even while I was in the birthing room, like, I was learning on the fly. Like, as they were introducing medications like Pitocin, like, what is Pitocin? So instead of just, you know, scrolling on my phone, you know, like, let me read up on this stuff. Or if, you know, the monitor slipped on her stomach, okay, well, she has two on there. She has a pink one and a blue one. The blue one's for the baby, the pink one is for her. This is her heart rate, this is blah, blah, blah. So just learning all that stuff on the fly, paying attention to it, but then also thinking to myself, like, how many other brothers are on it like this, are paying attention like this? And so to your point about the birthing plan, like, how many guys know about a birthing plan and that they can be a part of it, and that, you know, with the help of a doula, they can come up with that. And especially for like first-time parents. It's like, you've never been in the birthing room, but you got this doula here who's done countless births, and it's like, okay, this is what you can anticipate. This is what you can expect. And so the guy can talk about, oh, I didn't know that. And then the woman can say, I don't know that. And so then they can come together with the doula, assist them as they come up with the birthing plan. So when they're in the room, they know their options. Because I think, you know, when the doctor came in for us on the first day, it was like, you know, we're gonna have to have a C-section. You know, it was kind of like, wow, like, we have to? But at the same time, it was like, well, we're independent, like, we have power in this as well. It's like, what you mean we have to? Like, we know there's options. But a lot of times people feel like when that doctor comes in with a white coat, all the authority resides with that person, unless you know otherwise, right? And so I think people need to maintain their power and not feel like once a white coat comes in, it's removed from the space. So I think by educating myself, both of us educating ourselves on what a doula is, and what a midwife is, what the history is. You know, we know our own family history and what it was like when family members were giving birth and what that was like. And so just being very intentional about bringing this life into the world. We were intentional about naming our child. We were intentional about the room. Why not be intentional about the birthing plan as well, to make sure that the individual makes it into the space? So there was a lot of intentionality, a lot of seriousness, a lot of purpose when it came to, you know, just, we're gonna have this baby and this is the way we're gonna do it. And when we come up against things we don't know, we'll reach out to folks. Like, we didn't mind reaching out to the community like you talked about. You know, we reach out to midwives, doulas, social workers. You had a baby, cool, we're gonna talk to you too. And so it's just informing ourselves and then, you know, spitting out the grizzle, you know, like, okay, that's not good information, we'll leave that alone. Like, that's cool. And to your point about, you know, you can have the best of both worlds. Like, just because everyone in your group is doing homeworks doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it as well. Like, if you're not comfortable with it, then do what makes you feel comfortable, because you want the child at the end of the day. And so I think, you know, having that intentionality, know what you're there for, and what's the outcome you're looking for. And so I think just informing ourselves just helped us make a more informed decision.
Well said. You know, birthing is hard work. You know, it's called labor for a reason. Hopefully I'm not being verbose to say this, because obviously I'm not a woman. It's beautiful work though, you know, and women who have gone through it and have had successful outcomes, I've almost unanimously heard positive things about what that process is like. And so when a father is able to be involved, you can really make sure you can make sure you have provided your spouse, your wife, the mother of your child. You can do your best to like provide the best environment for her and that baby to be successful. And you might have saw me grimacing not grimacing, but like my face contorted while you were talking. Because I feel it, and this conversation is so layered, because our culture, Black people in this country, across the world, we need Black women and Black babies to have successful outcomes. We need fathers to be involved if we're going to do anything. It's the maternal health care situation, I'll call it. I'm going to speak forward. I'm not going to keep calling it a crisis, because I believe this is a part of us. This is a part of the revolution. So the maternal health care situation is at the core of our society and our success as a people. And it's not as simple as dads not being there because they don't want to be there. I imagine how privileged we are, Bantu. I mean, you're a PhD. I'm a moderately successful artist. Like, we were able to be intentional and be involved. So many brothers feel like they can't.
Yeah.
They gotta go to work.
Yeah.
And that can't be left out of the conversation.
Yep.
You know, they gotta go to work, or they got stuff going on. You know, they got, you know,
You gotta get the check.
they gotta get a check, or there's just the conversation is layered. I'm not gonna belabor at this point, but I think it's important to note here that Black men want, unanimously, the brothers I talk to, like they want to be involved.
Right.
Societally, we have a lot of elements that are kind of elephants in the room in this conversation. But what I will say on an upswing in my statement is that when you invest invest in this portion of the process, in the prenatal portion of the process, you have a much better chance of that relationship surviving through and thriving through the birth process. We see so often kids born in the situations and then the relationships fall apart. And I would say to men and women out there watching this, that being intentional about your birth plan is also being intentional about your relationship. Because you're gonna learn so much about your woman, you're gonna learn so much about your man as you are cultivating this big moment that will forever change not only your life, but your relationship. So there's so many benefits and blessings that come out of men getting involved in this process. And it can I believe it, and my wife believes this. This is why we started Tada Baby. We believe that saving Black mothers and Black and children is also helping our culture, the great cause. Our families are the bedrock and at the cornerstone of us being able to mobilize on any level, and be progressive on any level, and be respected on any level.
I appreciate that, fellas. I can hold that for a second. So, I'll say this. I have a big, Fathers Matters. We want to lift up the family unit, right? And we know that it's important that dads get their voices amplified, their experiences noticed, right? And then also they get that kind of like mental health / support that they need to be able to show up how they want to show up and be involved, right? I personally feel like nobody should have kids unless y'all have a full conversation with the person that you're trying to have kids with. All that thing you were talking about, like medical history, emotional history, if y'all got schizophrenia, mental history, like have conversations with people. You listening? Have conversations with the people who you're thinking about having kids with, because you never really know exactly what's going to come out of that situation unless y'all have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? And then the fact of having a conversation, like you mentioned, is alluding to the fact that you are growing and knowing one another that much more on a deeper level to understand how you will be parenting with one another. You know what I'm saying? Y'all have a sense of, okay, well, if this happens, I know how that's going to work out because I know what they might do. You know what I'm saying? So all that just to say that I agree with everything that you mentioned around the Black family as a unit needs to be more solidified. They need to be more engaged with one another and intentional, as you mentioned, around their birthing plan and then how they want to navigate their family. Right? So I thank y'all for letting me share. I thank y'all for giving all that lovely, wonderful information, man. And just as a final question, and this is just however y'all feel about it, but what would be one takeaway that you would want to leave with the audience about doulas, dads being involved? I'll let y'all have it.
I want to say I like that you guys both touched on the word intentional. And intentional and mental health is what comes to my mind, right? And we talked about a birth plan, right? I feel like folks forget about the postpartum period a lot. And just to give a little fact, I'm not going to get into numbers, but that is the time where a lot of Black and brown families and parents are dying, right, in that postpartum period. And experiencing postpartum depression, psychosis, and things like that. So I want to take the word intentional and say I think people should be very intentional about the plans of postpartum, right? And I think the birthing person and their partner really needs to be intentional about what the plans are going to look like. Like, we all sit back and talk about and envision what the birth may look like and who we want at the birth and how we want that to look. But we forget about once things get quiet and all your support leaves, right? And maybe you have done your time with your doula. What we doing now, right? what is things gonna, that's when times get tough and sticky, and we tend to like forget about that, and then when it happens, we're so shocked. Like, we got this new person we gotta take care of, and we are responsible for it, and what I'm supposed to do. So I think being intentional about what postpartum is gonna look like for you, being intentional about educating yourself on the signs of what depression, postpartum depression looks like, what postpartum psychosis looks like, right, within your partner. I think that's something that partners should really educate themselves on about. I have taught classes before where dads and partners were in attendance, and you know, I talked to them about like the warning signs of what to see within that pregnant person or that postpartum mother. Let's catch it before it gets too bad, right? Let's say, hey, I think we need to go talk to somebody. I think we need to get some help, right? And just being supportive in that period and understanding the hormone fluctuation and things that's happening. And honestly, I feel like it happens to the partner and the mother, right? Because you went through this big thing too, right? You're experiencing a new process. Even if it's not your first child, it's adding another child to the bunch and kind of trying to find your way. So I do think that should be intentional about that postpartum.
You got the question?
No. I was so present and listening to her.
Final thoughts.
Yeah, just, I mean, what better way to button it than with a good old-fashioned colloquialism? It takes a village, you know, it really does. Like, that woman and that baby are communicating with God and each other to come into this world, but it takes a support system for that to be successful. And I think for men, we have that opportunity to invest in the relationship. We have through the prenatal process, we have an opportunity to invest in the relationship we're going to have with our child and with our spouse or the mother of our children. And it's in those, that first, second, third trimester up until the day that the child is born, that you have an opportunity to sow seeds and cultivate that relationship, because you don't know what the future holds, but you know that you want the woman that you've given this baby to be successful and healthy. You know that you want that child to be born. You want that, hopefully your relationship will also thrive. But even if it doesn't, it's a sacred communion that's happened throughout that time where she's growing and that baby's growing, and you have communicated to her how much you care about her and that baby. And regardless of what the future holds for your relationship, I believe that that investment will carry the two of you, the three of you through, so that the relationship can at least be healthy for the child, right? So I would leave with that, because you know we have a diverse tapestry of how relationships look. Not everybody is fortunate enough to be married to the woman they love and all the kids are under the same roof type. You know, that's not everybody's story. I want to be sensitive to that. But I do want to reiterate and double down on how the outcome of the child's life, of the birth experience, is directly correlated to how much we can invest and be intentional during that prenatal process. It can fuel whatever challenges that may come in the future. The counter to that, or what can overcome that, is fueled by our investment pre-birth. You know.
Yeah, I like that. So a couple of things. I know you said one. I got a couple of them. One of the things I like to tell new dads is whenever you have a new baby, make sure You put the baby in the bassinet on the wife's side. So when the baby cries in the middle of the night, the wife has to get to the baby. And you just turn over and close your eyes real hard and hope she don't expect you to get the baby. So that would be one. That's for free. That's for free. That's the free stuff right there.
He snuck that one.
Yeah, there it is. It's right there. The other thing I think about, we talk about statistics, like the maternal morbidity rates being 60%. And so, in some ways, I think about that as like almost like a survivor's guilt. Like, we made it out, and we got the kids, but how many people didn't? And, you know, you talked about postpartum, like once the baby's here. I think about paid family medical leave. Like, I was able to get a month off to just be home with the kids. I think all 4 of them, like, I was able to be home post-birth to help with the support, to be there so they knew my voice, so I could read to my kids, pray with my kids, feed my kids, attempt to comb hair for my daughter. Just those different things that, like you said earlier, like situations where it's like, hey, you had the baby, I gotta go to work, you know? And I'll see the baby when I get home after 6. But that depends on how intense the work day was. You know, I might fall asleep. And so I think those different things like just play into it. And so I think also like having a sensitivity to everyone's situation, but I would even add to that, that I don't want to diminish my situation by making you feel better. Like, yes, I'm sensitive to what you're going through, but I also have a unique situation as well. And I want us to both have our situations in the same space at the same time, and no one feels diminished or as if I'm coming across as better than you or you're less than me. So I think just learning how to be in spaces where we can have all these different things happening, and at the core of it all, we're compassionate to one another. Like, hey, you're going through this, let's help. Like, I have these resources to support you. I'm going through this, how can you support me? And so that way it's symbiotic. It doesn't feel like, oh, well, you know, Demetrius got it all, he doesn't need anything. Well, no, actually, Demetrius don't. You know, he was dealing with this thing, you know, like post-birth, he's struggling with like, you know, hey, is this gonna work? Is this not gonna work? But he looks strong, but like, you know, the old adage, you know, check on your strong friends, you know? Because we don't always know what we're going through. And so I think it's just important to check in on folks, especially postpartum, or even during the process, because there's a lot of fear happening as that's going on. Like, I remember my wife and I, we had a mutual friend, and the child's father, just before the baby was born, he was fearful and committed a crime and ended up in jail. So he wasn't even there to see the birth of this child, because he feels that thing you feel when a baby is entering the world is like, I gotta have money to support this baby, and so commits this crime. Now he can't support the kid. And so now mom is left with the kid, raising this kid, and relying on grandparents, relying on a community, you know, that, you know, she had to make sure it was built into place. And so, gotta be sensitive to the situations. And just how do you have compassion for all those folks? So yeah, so that would be my final thoughts. Hopefully, I mean, I started off with a joke, and it's sober, so I hope it balances out. Maybe it wasn't a joke, maybe it was true.
It was a true joke.
Right.
So thank you all, definitely appreciate it. Thank everybody for showing up, and just to kind of like round out our conversation, I definitely agree with the idea of having a mutual understanding during the birthing process. Like, this is why I suggest people have conversations before they get pregnant, because both people are going through emotional, maybe disturbances, right? Fluctuations, let's call them, right? While these people are pregnant together. So you have to be sensitive to the other person, and then also compassionate at the same time. It's like a complex like programming that you have to be on, right? Because you want to be present, but you also don't want to overstep or like pressure them and put them into another situation. Again, that's why having conversations with people before you have children with them makes sense. And then also to the point, like, you never really know what people are going through, man. I don't know if y'all heard about the LSU guy, you know what I'm saying, just over the weekend, you know what I'm saying, like, committed suicide because he had a situation, right, that he couldn't face on his own. So definitely, when it comes to high stress, like, life situations, and I would definitely agree that having children is a high stress situation. You know what you're capable of, know your limitations, and then also seek assistance. So that way you don't have to deal with things on your own. I appreciate all you all for showing up today. Remember, we are Fathers Matter, where we amplify dad voices and experiences. We have Birthmark Doulas, we have Tada Baby. So y'all check into all these lovely organizations to receive some of their services and catch us on the next one. Because we got 3 events for the next 4 months. So come out at us. All right.
Yes, thank you so much. I am also Dr. Victoria Williams. I am I do want to introduce myself at this point. Yes. I am the advocate lead as well as member owner of Birthmark Doula Collective, or we just go by Birthmark. Thank you so much for being here. And I think today we shared stories and we talked a lot about community. And that's what we're here for. We're here about sharing how can we continue to be a community together and know our role and know our space and know our place and keep the conversation going. So everyone here who decided to join us online or in the building, it's about continuing to keep that conversation going. Not just talking about the intentions of your partner, but also the intention of those in the family. I mean, this has to be a full conversation, and I think that we learned a lot about that here. Just a quick question before we wrap up, and if anyone has a question in the room, this is our time. But when do you think that it clicks on that you're about to be a dad? Like, when does that click? And even, I think about even as a doula, like, when do you realize in the conversation they're like, oh my goodness, they're involved? Right. Yeah, for any partner.
I'll speak for myself. I think when you start to see the bump, but we don't really understand until the baby actually is born, right? And that's twofold. So it's like you're kind of halfway there when you see the bump. When the bump happens, it's like, oh, it's coming. This is happening. When the baby's born, you have more of you can self-identify with your partner more because that life is there.
When did it become real? I guess, I kind of wanted to always be a dad in some ways, I guess. So it was just kind of always in the back of my mind that, one day I'll be a dad. And then when it actually happens, another light bulb clicks that you're responsible for another kid, or a human rather, that you have to bring to the world. And so it just shifts your mindset on how you live and how you act and how you talk to people. And I think one of the things I talk about is caring culture. Young girls are taught at a young age how to care. Boys, not so much. And so I'm looking at my oldest son here, he's 9. And so the baby who was just on my lap, he cares for him. He wants to change the diaper, he wants to put on clothes, he wants to help with all these different things. And I don't stop him. But typically you say, hey, boys don't do that, get your toy gun, shoot something, break something, but rather you should learn to care as well. Because eventually you'll be a dad and you need to learn these qualities. So that way you know how to treat people, that you don't always just push people to get your way, that there's a way you can talk to people and interact with people. And so yeah, all of that.
I would say, so as a doula, I have experienced the time that it clicks on. I'm asked this question a lot, what is your best time within your doula work? And I always tell people the moment that baby comes out, and I get a chance to look at that dad and that mom's face and just how all they're in, it's no worries at that moment. They're just hyper focused and very intentional on this baby And you can tell, like, I don't care what may have been happening before or what's to come, they're not worried about that. They just want to see their baby. That is the time I think it clicks. Like, when they take that baby out and lay that baby on her chest, and he is looking over, and she's staring down, they're just staring. Like, I can just keep that in my mind. That's what keeps me, like, going. That's what makes the hard times within this work, you know, feel not as hard, because I know that moment is to come, right? So I feel like that's the time it clicks.
I like to answer. So, I'll be real. Like, it clicked when she told me she was pregnant, like, straight up. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I always wanted to be a dad. You know what I'm saying? I prayed for my children before I had children. I prayed for a boy and a girl, and that's just what I got. So I was like, yeah. So when my girl came out, I was like, oh, she's so adorable. When my boy came out, I was like, oh, that's my little homie right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to take him to the store. They'd be like, oh, that's your little brother. I'd be like, yeah, that's my little brother. That's my little brother. So, I mean, I was ready for children. I was doing my girl hair, you know what I'm saying, when I could. I watched the hairdresser do it a couple times, and it's like, I got it from him. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a mindset that you have to kind of like cultivate in yourself. If you're ready to be a parent, you know, some people get surprised. You know, I'm like, well, why you not using condoms? You know what I'm saying? If you don't want to handle, you know? So that's why I'm at with it. Like, for real, like, I've heard too many stories around people who like, well, I don't want to have this kid, I ain't ready for no kid. Well, it's like, well, you're doing stuff to have a kid, so it kind of makes sense that you have a kid. But at the same time, you know, in my experience, for men who step up to that role, you know what I'm saying, it's a different mindset that they have to kind of prepare themselves for this new responsibility, right? And I think that's the gist of it, right? You have to have a mindset frame around how you want to be responsible as a parent. So, thank y'all for letting me share.
Yes, it's your time to be interviewed. Any other questions?
This is for Tasia. I understand the concept of postpartum depression, but as far as like in terms of from your experience, I'm not sure if you've dealt with it or not, but what clicks on the woman's side of the birthing process that you're now in this state? What fork of the road happened?
Yeah, for our live
I'm not sure if I phrased that
participants.
properly, but that's, yeah.
The question is, when does it click for us in the postpartum depression period? And I can also answer.
Yeah, Vic probably can give you a more elaborate, educated answer than I can. No, but I would say this. I'm gonna just say this, and not to just get so deep into like science, right? So once the mother has the baby, you know, her hormones are like all over the place, trying to balance back out. And it's been said, postpartum, the time frame of postpartum, that's real fickle at this moment. Some people are saying, oh, 6 weeks and a year, 2 to 4 years. Like, I think it depends on the person, honestly. And how long it takes for you to get that balance back. And some people never get that balance back. Some people are different people after that, right? Because of that influx, right? So, as I said, not to dog, but that is what happens, right? And so now you're fighting, your body is fighting against these unbalanced hormones and what your body knew before. And so the brain gets confused. And it's hard to think clearly in those moments sometimes, and it's hard to make good sound decisions in those times. And that was why I said folks need to be intentional about the postpartum, because let's talk about when I might not be in my right now. When I can make a sound decision, I'm gonna need you to make that for me, right? So let's talk about what that could look like for us. Let's talk about what other support we're gonna bring into our space. Who else we gonna have to help us? Because I might come to a point where I can't help you, the baby, or myself, right? So I think it's not a set time And it can happen months after, and that's something else. People like, oh, the first couple of weeks you'll experience baby blues is what they call it. Yeah, but months after you can experience. Some people don't experience it. Everybody's body different. So you can't have it on one playing field. And I hate that the medical system makes it like, okay, if you haven't experienced it by this time, it won't happen. Not true. I've met people that have experienced postpartum 2 years later, right? And really was heavy into it. And it may have stemmed and kind of stayed dormant before and was not recognized, but 2 years later, they were just experiencing. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I often share that postpartum depression, any kind of like depression, mental illness looks different in the Black community because we can't stop. You know, and a lot of times our bodies tell us we gotta keep going. So just clinically, when you think about what happens, your hormones are all over the place. When that placenta comes out, boom, it draws another big wave of hormones come in. But I think that it's just if you have that predisposition to mental illness, more than likely you'll have postpartum depression. That's clinical. That's okay. But also, what's ironic and was kind of, I don't know, different about the postpartum period, which is why you need to have that care, is because if you have never had a mental illness, you can have postpartum depression, right? So you can do the pre-work if you know that you're gonna have it, but some people don't even know that they're gonna have it. You don't know what will happen in that period. But I think that, and honestly, we're postpartum forever. Postpartum just means after birth. So we're technically postpartum all together. And for parents who are birthing, your real self or whatever you're looking for is not a thing, right? You're new. You're a brand new person. You've never had a baby before, or this is your second baby. You've never had 2 babies before, right? And so coming to terms with that, I'm a new being, have a new brain, new body, new understanding of life. If we have conversation about that, hopefully it can help. But yeah, it just depends. It depends.
I have one. The brothers were talking about the father's role, including the father inside the maternal process and maybe the family and what have you. As a father myself, I find that it's an out-of-body experience. The whole child thing, at least for me, it's an out-of-body experience. Once you're pregnant, we're watching stuff. We're just waiting for stuff to happen. We're playing defense for the most part. So a lot of times when Amanda Peters spoke about the brother who he went and committed a crime or what have you, yeah, he was playing defense. He didn't know what he was doing. He made some poor choices based on some expectations of not having that kind of conversations with people, those sort of things. But I'm just speaking with you all that, you know, the birth process for me is more so internally, be it with the womb, with the mind, the connection between the two. And then you have this whole other life inside you, another brain, another part, all that good stuff. So yeah, I think we're both playing 2 sides of the same coin.
Great point.
We've hinted and spoken a lot about the role of men, of course, as fathers matter, and the traditional role, of course, breadwinner, leader. What are you saying to soon-to-be fathers, those who want to become fathers, about the fact that being a father and being a partner is kind of different than being at work? That is more of a service leadership than it is anything else. Because that postpartum period, I have found in my experience supporting families, men want to do everything outside the house. I want to go out and get that check. I want to make sure this, and that all these other things are tight. So she ain't got to worry about that. But where the help and the need is actually in the home with her. What do you say to shift that you don't, money, yes, is important. Getting that check is important, but your presence and your emotional support, how do you communicate that to the next generation of future fathers?
How do you communicate it to them? Just the importance of it. That we have to take care of us, right? We have to take care of us, and if our sisters are having babies and they're not supported in the postpartum realm of having children, then that's going to create a domino effect, and we have to just encourage younger brothers who are starting their families to care about what our future looks like, to care about what our relationships look like, the health of our society, the health of our women, the health of our babies. We have to care and know that nobody's going to save us. We are going to save us, and that may look different. That may look like us finding hobbies in the house. Many of us are not, naturally inclined to be domestic and be in the house. A lot of us are just like hunters, warriors, journeymen, and that's how we self-identify. I think we have to be open and encourage our younger generations to be open to evolving our mindset, especially once we've had a child with someone that we love. We have to evolve and not identify ourselves as journeymen, as hunter-gatherers, and more so as homesteaders, as gardeners, those who are gonna stay 10 toes down, as they say. It's us of maturing and informing ourselves in things like what Birthmark Doulas is doing, like this, what Tada Baby is doing. It's us having these conversations and realizing that birth is not just like women's business. We have to evolve our mindset through these kinds of conversations.
If I could add to that.
Please do.
So, quite honestly, I don't think, and this is just my personal opinion, right? I don't think dads have to be necessarily homebody to be able to support. You know what I'm saying? Because on the one hand, the baby is only going to be a baby for a short amount of time. But me personally, when my children were small, I took them with me pretty much everywhere I went. You know what I'm saying? So whether I was going to the store, whether I was going just outside, you know what I'm saying? I took my kids with me. And in a lot of ways, like I said, I wanted to be that involved parent to be able to do all of the things, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't necessarily have a separation in my mind of, I cannot do this. This is not my role, you know what I'm saying? Or she should be doing this. It wasn't like that for me. But I will say to young dads though, who may not have this type of mindset or not thinking around this, is your DNA is 50% of that child. You know what I'm saying? So that is half of your responsibility. Now how that looks for you, it may be different, but I will also kind of add to that is, and I'm not sure if everybody knows, well I know you know this, but I learned in my doula certificate that the placenta is made up of all of dad's DNA. So literally while that baby is in the mom's womb, it is being protected, encapsulated, nourished, nutritionalized, you know what I'm saying, by dad's DNA. You know what I'm saying? So it's you once you, for me at least, once I heard that, I was like, damn, I've been protected, I've been providing, you know what I'm saying? Even, look, that's how I feel. So that's a different type of perspective, you know what I'm saying? But these are the type of conversations that I have, because we done had dad discussions where dudes was like, man, she's getting on my case because I don't do this and I don't do that. Well, it was like, well, dude, well, just listen to her. You know what I'm saying? Give her what she needs in these moments. That's your kid too, right? Don't shy away from having the responsibility of being a dad. Because Bantu, and he shares stories around when people see him out, and Andre, for example, he out with his kid, somebody might say, oh, you out with your kid? That's amazing. It's this is my kid. I'm not a unicorn out here, you know what I'm saying? So it's just having a perspective around, this is my responsibility as a man, as a father, right? Then that can lead to that openness of, I can adapt and change as needed, you know what I'm saying, to provide the support in the house and outside the house.
And I want to add to that real quick. Two young brothers, anybody who's watching this, maybe you're not, married and you knew you wanted to have a baby and you got a war chest of money in the bank and you're ready to have this child. And Maybe that's not your story, but you know, a child who you invest in, the mother of your child who you invest in, and the outcome of them being successful and healthy through that birth process will bless your life. I guarantee you, regardless. Like I said earlier, relationships go in different directions. People come together and have children under a myriad of different circumstances. So I hope we don't leave anyone out of this conversation. That's why I keep coming back to this. It's about women having healthy outcomes with their children, with the babies that they birth. And it's about the men, because it takes two, right? It's about the men who impregnate these women. It's such a funny word to use. But it's about us caring about that. It's that simple. We have to care about what is gonna happen. And what I'll say is that if we care about it, we invest in that, it'll only bless your life. The Bible says in Proverbs that a man with children is like an archer with arrows in his quiver. You know, that's really proverbial language for saying that. I'll break it down and make it very simple. It's like whatever you invest in your seeds and your children, and in the woman who births those children, it will come back to you tenfold and bless your life. It's the best work you can do. It can be the hardest work for us because we're healing so many generational curses and traumatic scars in our culture, myself included. We are overcoming a lot. But this movement to improve the outcomes for Black and brown women in the maternal healthcare space, this movement is so critical and keystone to our success and our progression as a people. And if we as the men want for us to have a bright future, for these guys to have a bright future, it really starts with this process.
That's the Spider-Man pose. Yeah, I think it looks different for men. I think at times we have to should recognize that for some men, they feel like caring for their kid is going out there to work, to get paid, because you talk about the postpartum situation, like healthcare visits. How are you getting there? Are you driving a car? Are you taking an Uber? Or someone's got to bring you there? You got to eat, you got to keep lights on, you got to do all these different things. And so for some guys, it's like, I got to keep working to keep the money coming in to make sure these things are happening. And so, yeah, I may not be as involved the first year with the child, but that's not by choice. I'm not doing this purposefully, saying that I don't want to be a part of this kid's life. But if mom's not working for a little bit, then I got to make sure I do my part. And some of it is, roles, stereotypes, like, I have to be the man, I gotta work, I gotta do this. So sometimes I think we do kind of fall into those societal roles, like a man does this, a woman does that. And so I think when it's, some type of tragedy is not the word, you say crisis earlier, situation is a better word. We just had this baby, this is new to me, this is new to her. You kind of revert back to the basics and what you know. And so it's like, I know I need to work, I need to provide, so I'm gonna do these things. And as much as I can be a part of my child's life in the early stages, I will be. And then when things slow down, I can be more engaged. And so for some dads, I feel like I have to sacrifice time with the child in order to make sure that the roof is over the head and all these other things. I think about like shows like Good Times, where it's like, James Evans is like, just working hard. And I'm grateful for a community that moms will come around, my kids stop from jumping, possibly hurt so. And so I think, it's that, it's just, sometimes guys feel like, this is what I have to lock in here to make sure I can provide for my family.
And what I'm saying is a lot of times, we don't know the plan, right? So all we feel is rejection and abandonment, right? If you're not saying or communicating, look, love, I need to go X, Y, Z. I remember being a 19-year-old child, giving birth, and you know, the dad was like, I just want to go work. And I'm like, work? We just had a baby. Like, that's weird. Why don't you come with me? Like, come with me and the baby so that we can figure this out. But yeah, it didn't work out. But I think that, yeah, just tell us the plan. Yeah, let's make the plan together. Yeah. Communication. Yes. We have data port in the building.
Data port.
What's going on, everybody? Andre Parisi from Dataport. To answer your question, I would say more inclusion during the process. From the time she found out she's pregnant, I went through that whole process. I can't remember on one wall them saying dad tips on what I should do while she's carrying. But everything they took, every time I looked on the wall, it was something showing her from how to sit, how to stand, how to sleep, how to do all of these things. And of course, I took that information because I was taking that initiative. But if you really look at it, the dad's role is barely even acknowledged during that process. And so more inclusion. Hey, you're pregnant, you're with dad now. What does couples conversations look like? So we can start that communication process. What does it look like to support her through the first trimester, the second trimester, so you know what's going on? Because I can't even tell you how many times I cried watching my lady throw up and stuff, because I'm like, I can't control this, and this doesn't look like and so I went straight to Google, and it was just like, well, while she's throwing up, rub this, and make sure you have a cold rag. And these are the things that should be given to me. I'm dad. I'm here. I need to have that information. So inclusion is really, really huge right now. We need dad stations in these facilities and things of that nature that let us know what we can be doing during that stage. I would love to see a chart of a trimester stage and say, this is dad's particular role here, and there. You go into Walmart, they have a whole baby section, but they don't even have information. They just got a baby section. And there's a lot of things that we know that we shouldn't be encouraging that's bought at Walmart for our children. And so, is it illegal to have information and to let people decide? No, but we gotta be more proactive. We gotta include ourselves in what's going on and where our babies are being supported. So I'm always big on inclusion. I'm a dadvocate. I believe on having these dadversations and really making this push to what you don't know, you won't do.
Yeah, and as we wrap up and we understand it's Black Maternal Health Week, we're going to insert that F for fathers, right? Because we understand that it's important to have a village, a team, community, like people. We cannot do this work alone. We're not meant or built to do it alone. And so, let's just continue to have these conversations. Take this information either on live or in person and continue to grow it and uplift the work of the doulas that's in the room, these organizations that are here and represented. We're just so excited and we're grateful that you're here and you're able to share with us in this moment. As I always say when I go into these spaces, these rooms should be packed out with information provided to our community about having conversations. We have to talk. And also our elders have to talk to us. So we have experienced people here ready and willing to talk to those who want to listen. So keep the conversation going. And thank you guys for coming.
Right at 80 minutes. 80 minutes on the dot. Wonderful, guys. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'm not gonna. None of people have babies in this town. We're doing these like every few months, all right?
This tonight, and I will send it to you guys immediately. I don't need money to start, and I got shit to do. Ooh, that big hot. Yes. Vic. Where you want me to upload this to? You want it in like a Dropbox? What you want in like a Google Drive?
Whatever, yeah, Google. Google is easier for me.
Okay. I'll upload the Google Drive hopefully tonight, if not no later than tomorrow.
If you have the opportunity for you guys to
Take it now.
what do you want to do for that? Do I need to get some flowers?
That is
You want to do a little sit?
right there.
Right here?
Everybody?
No. Yeah, everybody. Or, yeah.
But I'm gonna still have to get off this and get type of this.